politician does, right? I mean, he might not agree with it, but he does what his constituents want. And the Democratic Party is moving more to the left.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, he has to be a little bit more moderate than he was 20 years ago on these issues.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. You know, the folks on the right, I mean, everyone's really susceptible to messaging. So I shouldn't just say it's the folks on the right. But I'm hearing people repeat these talking points like, well, he's been in there for 47 years and he hasn't done a thing. And I'm like, so really? Like, you could really, you know, trot out all the senators and representatives and tell me like what their records are and what they've actually done, or you just like repeating a talking point that sounds cool to you and makes you, you know, feel like you're smart, you know?
Right,
You
exactly.
can remember the number 47 and it's a long time and you could say someone hasn't done anything.
Right.
You know? And then the people on the opposite side of that are pissed off about the things that he has done, like the crime bill and all that stuff. So like, he's obviously done something.
Right, exactly. And, you know, ironically, he's done the stuff that the right actually approves of. Yeah. So I'm not so sure why I mean, I know why. He's obviously the pariah, but it's just, it's really interesting.
And then Trump is using that to his advantage, you know, during the debates, trying to goat him into talking about what's the phrase they always use for like safety and, well, like when they're talking about like public safety and stuff, when that's like a code word for like, you know, Black people and cities and like, you know,
urban. Yeah,
exactly. They're always talking about some kind of safety. It's 2 words. I forget what it is, but you know, it's their code word for being hard on crime and stuff. He's trying to get Biden to say that, and then he's goading Biden into like talking shit about the Green New Deal, right? And he's playing like right into Trump's hand, you know. And Trump even said, you know, the progressives aren't going to like what you're saying, you know. They're going to like turn on you for saying this stuff, but you know, I guess they know, you know, what buttons they're trying to push for like what demographics or whatever. So,
and you know, if Trump's good at anything, it's sales, right? I mean, that's his thing. He's a salesman.
Yep.
He's like a shady used car salesman. You know?
Yeah.
He uses the same techniques, like the aggressive handshaking and the shoulder patting and you know.
Yeah, there was a documentary about that, about his whole like, you know, snake oil salesman, you know, technique kind of thing, like the whole the confidence man kind of thing, like really old school shady techniques.
And it works. I mean, that's why we have a lot of laws protecting people from snake oil. Because it works.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like the shady stuff works and no one vets it. So it's just like, you know, say a phrase that sounds cool to people, get people to repeat it, and that's all that really matters.
Right, exactly.
That's why I kind of like, you know, sometimes my friend Ish complains about, you know, like Cuomo's brother Chris and like some folks who are using their own version of spin, but on the left. Yeah. And I'm like, these people have popped up because they saw how well it worked on the right and they were sick of losing. So they figured they would like try some of these tactics for themselves. But I mean, it's still not done to the effect that it's done on the right, you know?
Right. Oh, they're amazing.
Yeah. I mean, they've been doing it for so long.
I think they've been planning this for a very, very long time. Like, not Trump specifically, but like they kind of had it with Reagan, right? I mean, Reagan was their first superstar candidate.
Well, speaking of Trump, they actually were planning Trump for years. What's his name? The superstar scumbag that was like behind Trump winning. They had a documentary on him too.
Roger Stone?
Roger Stone, yeah.
Yeah.
Roger Stone has been begging Trump to run for decades. So,
Crazy.
yeah. So there you go. I mean,
Yeah.
they've been planning it. And really, if you look at the signs, the candidates on the right have gotten dumber and dumber and dumber and dumber. Like with Bush, we thought that was the dumbest we were ever going to see. And then we saw like Sarah Palin. We thought that was the dumbest we were going to see. And then there was like Michelle Bachmann and like all these other people and like, and they just got like dumber and dumber.
Well, and I think that they kind of co-opted Christianity in such a sense that they turned it. I believe it's like I believe that the evangelicals are a political party.
Yeah. Well, that was the genius of Bush Jr. For as dumb as we thought he was, like he helped his father get elected by, according to evangelicals, and then he kind of ran with it,
Do you think that he actually bought into like the spirituality of it, or do you think it was all a political move for him?
That's really hard for me to say. I mean, when I see him playing footsies with Michelle Obama, and I see people like rewriting history, saying they want to grab a beer with this guy and he's so fun, I think maybe he believed in some of that stuff, and maybe that's why he pushed it on his father as like not just, hey, you can use these people to get elected, but maybe he had an inside thing because he really did believe. I mean, he certainly seems a lot more sincere than Trump ever could be.
Oh,
right? For
yeah.
people who think Trump is some kind of like spiritual person. I mean, my sister's been showing me that there are people who basically, they worship at the foot of Trump as some kind of like spiritual character or something.
Yeah.
And it's like a cult.
Yeah.
And so no matter what you say, he's going to spin it his way, and it's always going to be fake news. Even if you show them quotes of what he said, it's going to be fake news. And then, he's telling us in so many words, like I could shoot someone in the middle of, Fifth Avenue, and my followers would still follow me. Like he's telling us exactly what's going on, but it just doesn't matter.
He's lived his whole life like that, right? Like grab him by the pussy. They let you do whatever they want, whatever you want. You got money, you can do whatever you want. Yep. I mean, he was raised that way. I mean, he really, really, really believes it.
Yeah, it's money, and it's unfortunately a personality that people find, I guess funny and striking, and it's like that reality TV show like train wreck personality thing that people find cool,
Yeah.
It is kind of amazing. Like sometimes when I'm on the phone, I can tell that I'm speaking to someone who's probably going to be a Trump supporter, and then sometimes you can't. Sometimes you're speaking to someone who sounds nice and educated, and
I know. It happened to me at work, actually. I was in the break room, and I was like, oh, so, and they were, talking about politics, and I stayed neutral as I could. And I was like, the one thing, it doesn't really matter what your politics are. Like, at least Biden understands the system, and he understands the law, and he will follow the law, And someone I work with was like, yeah, but he's for the poor people. And I thought at first that she was saying that as a plus.
Right.
But she wasn't. Like,
well, that was going to be my point is, there are some people who are like, yeah, I have money and he's going to help me, so I'm going to vote for him.
But they don't have money. They think that they're closer in economic status to the 1% than they do, working class Americans.
Oh, sure.
Do you know what I mean? Like, she believes for some reason that, that she's rich. She's not rich. She's a nurse. She works with me.
That's the American dream. It's
exactly.
the American dream to like dream that you're richer than you are.
Exactly.
I mean, if you've grown up around people who didn't have jobs or like a steady paying job, then, you know, being a nurse is steady. As far
Absolutely.
as being rich, yeah, that's just a weird concept. It goes both ways, because I've read where the 1% starts, and I've read where working class starts, and all this other stuff. And some of it is like the thresholds actually seem lower to me,
Yeah, me too. I read
as far
that
as
too.
what you make, except for when you get into savings. Once you get into savings, then I'm like, okay,
Right.
now that is like a different level.
Absolutely.
And then it's like, oh, okay, so I'm making more money, but I'm like horrible at savings. So it's actually like, you know, so I can see why.
Or you don't have the resources to save.
Right.
Like,
right,
and
sure.
I think the cutoff is what, 400,000, something like that for the 1%.
For the 1%? Yeah, something like that.
Which was shocking to me.
Yeah.
But because that's really not that much money. It's
Right.
not. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. I'm not saying it's a lot. Not
And then
a lot.
the assets. I don't know what the assets are.
It's the assets. It has like the properties, the savings, the investments, like, you know, that's really what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think I looked at the numbers and it said I was like middle class, and I was just laughing like that's a joke. But I'm like, oh, that's just income. You know, and then I looked again recently, and like the numbers, I thought it was like you're supposed to have thousands of dollars for every age you are. So like a 43-year-old should have like $43,000. But then the numbers were higher than that. But then they were like, then it was much more. Then it was like double or something. Maybe it was like when you're younger, it's like times 1,000. But then when you get to a certain age, it's like a lot higher. So it's like, nowhere near close.
Well, and I think that it's the generational advantage, right? So like people our age, 43, that have $43,000 in savings is a laughable amount of money to me. Like, I just can't imagine having that much savings. Like, I wouldn't work for a year, which is probably why I don't have that much money. But, you know, but I mean, they had to have gotten inheritance and, you know, trust fund, like something, because there's no way that a normal 43-year-old can start from nothing and then at 43 have $80,000 in savings.
Right.
It's impossible.
Well, now I'm looking back and I'm like, you know, if I had cooked every meal instead of like all that money I wasted on takeout and what else? Well, that's really it. Like, that's really it. Maybe like going out to bars, but no huge like amount of money spent besides that.
No,
right? Like,
no.
I'm not like
Like
traveling everywhere or doing anything like that, you know.
Right, like normal entertainment life.
Yeah.
Even low key, because you go to like, you know, you're not drinking $25 cocktails. You're having a $3 beer or whatever it might be. You know. Yep. So even comparatively, it doesn't match. You know.
Yeah. Yep. And I guess that's part of the problem with living in a big city and like renting, is like all that money is like not even going towards something you can keep or pass down or that kind of thing.
Right. And I think it's the passing down part. Like, honestly, I really think that that's the secret that's the secret, because there are very few like people who are our age that are self-made millionaires. Very, very few.
Right.
You know, maybe by the time they're 80, they become self-made millionaires.
Yeah.
And then what's the point? The point is just to pass it on to your family then.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I wanted to talk to you about your experiences nursing, but I wanted to have Ish here to kind of like bounce off, your experiences, but unfortunately he is MIA right now. But I might be able to get him on. Did you watch any of the debates?
Actually, no, I did not, because it's too mentally straining for me.
Yeah.
I just can't. I've been, I'm not an undecided voter, right? Like, I know who I'm voting for.
Yeah.
And I don't need to just get myself all worked up. You know, I really don't. Like, I know what's going on. And it's unfortunate because even like the people that I know, you know, when I talk politics with them, like I have a friend who's Orthodox Jew and she's gay and she had a child through artificial insemination. She lives here in New York and she's pro-Trump. And I just don't, you know what I mean? Like, I just can't fit the two things together. I can't. Like, I can understand my father-in-law because he's a white old man, right? So I can understand him being like, man, I don't really care that he doesn't like Jews. I don't care that he doesn't like blacks. I don't care that he's kind of a rapist. He's telling me he's going to save me money, right? So I'm just like, all right. You know, like, I understand that. But like this woman who's gay and who's Jewish and it just doesn't, it's,
and is it kind of like she just doesn't believe all of that stuff about him or that kind of thing?
Yes. It's not that she doesn't care. She doesn't believe. She believes that 40% of African Americans are going to vote for Donald Trump.
Wow, that's a scary thought. I mean, that any are voting for him is scary, but that's a scary thought. Where does she get a number like that from?
I have no idea, because it's at some point you just have to stop responding, right? And just be like, what the fuck are you talking about? But does she even, I don't know, maybe she doesn't know any people of color, because nobody of color that I know supports him. You know what I mean? So maybe that's what it is that she's just so insulated that she doesn't have critical thinking skills on the issue. I don't know. I really don't know.
It sounds like something Trump would have said.
Oh, of course. Of course it is. It's one of his rallies where everyone's getting coronavirus, you know?
Right.
They have the one guy in the back holding the sign, so she believes that it's real.
Yeah.
You know?
The one problem I see is like with the two-party system, you know, as people get disillusioned, they start conflating the two parties with each other, and they're like, oh, one is just as bad as the other. And I think sometimes he gets black votes that way from people who feel like they're woke to like the centrist, you know, bullshit, and that they're not going to just keep feeding the Democrats their vote. You know, unfortunately, that thought doesn't continue all the way to thinking about who now you're actually giving your vote to. You know,
Nazi.
Yeah. I mean, at least like withholding, you know, your vote. I mean, not that I would do that. Not that I agree with that logic, but at least like that's different than going ahead and giving it to Donald Trump.
Right, exactly. Like my husband is pretty pissed that Biden is the nominee, you know. Mm-hmm. He really liked Elizabeth Warren. He liked Sanders last time. Mm-hmm. But well, I mean, he's definitely voting for Biden. Yeah. But if he was saying, if it were somebody different than Trump, he would probably vote for third party, whatever the third party candidate would be.
Right.
Just like I did with Bush, you know, like I did the same thing with Bush in the 90s. I didn't like Gore, so I voted for Nader.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I've definitely spent time trying to convince people that Nader didn't actually ruin anything, but that's not really time well spent.
Right.
But, yeah, you know, I looked at how I voted for Bernie in the primary, you know, because I thought that was the right thing to do, and because I live in New York, you know, and then I looked at Howie Hawkins, and his website was down, and then I went to his Facebook, and it was just like a joke. It was like, I've worked on local city hall campaigns that had better Facebooks than this, and I was like, this is the best that the Green Party is putting up right now. This is why I can't do that to my vote, even though I live in a state that will probably go for Biden anyway. So I just voted for Biden because I just would not I would not give my vote to someone who looks like they spent less than an afternoon, putting their Facebook together.
Well, and that's the point, right? Is that you come as close as you can to ideal. Like the presidential, this is something that I feel very strongly on. Like the presidential election, while important because I believe it sets the tone for the nation and it kind of like is like the face of America to the rest of the world, which is incredibly important.
Yeah.
Ultimately, beside those two things, a real president, other than the power of war, doesn't have that much authority over our day-to-day life.
Sure.
Which is why I think that like the city elections, your county, state, those are so much more important that your actual candidate that you like, that you feel that they win.
From the state down to the city is definitely going to affect you more. That's for sure.
Right. And so no one's going to be perfect. Like, of course, my ideal candidate can't be the president of the United States because then people would they will go insane. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, it really has to be a big compromise. Right. Mm-hmm. That's the way I look at it. And I frankly think that that's how we got Trump, is that this is my personal philosophy on how Trump happened. First of all, Barack Obama is the most unique president the United States has ever had. Okay. He's a Black guy whose father is Nigerian, who has a name like Barack Hussein Obama, who was raised in Hawaii, who was like really actually, culturally a Black person, not just their race, their culture. Right. His wife is like a strong, intelligent Black woman who talks about how her ancestors were slaves. She went to Harvard. She's a lawyer. Yeah. You might as well throw the Huxtables in the White House because that's exactly what happened. And then after that, like that huge change, you want us to elect a woman? Right. Like it's never going to happen. I mean, that's who I voted for, of course, but I mean, I didn't think that Trump was going to win. That was shocking. But
I was actually shocked that was the attitude, because it was like, wait a minute, we just elected a Black person. Now you think we can't elect a woman? So I was shocked at that. But look who that person had to be. He had to be like, one of the top orators that we've ever had. He had to be like cool as a cucumber and like not blow up in people's faces when they're giving him shit. He had to be like extremely intelligent. I heard that our friend Andy called out Barack Obama being the first president like back in, it was something ridiculous, like definitely way before he would have been running, like, I don't know, was it 2006? I heard it was like a conference, like before he was even like state senator or something. It was like before he had decided to run. It was like very early. And then my friend Erica saw Barack speak for the first time, and then she knew what he meant. Like when she saw him speak and he had like the audience like in the palm of his hand, and she said she had never seen like such an electrifying speaker before. She knew that it was like very possible that he could win. But we need like the most like likable, like electrically charged, person that's going to bring people together. I'm maybe like an AOC or something like that. Someone who's like young and energetic and people just love them. So yeah, I mean, I almost think that it wouldn't be a white person. I think it would be someone who just like really like the multitude identifies with, and I don't know. I was passing out flyers one day when it kind of struck me that we really should have a black woman running for president when like every single black woman took this flyer from me, and then some of them were like getting other people to take the flyer from me, and that was the only demographic out there that was like that day, and it was like 100%, you know. And I just thought about, like, imagine how excited black folks were when Obama ran, and a lot of people said stupid things like, oh, I voted for him because he was black, or oh, people just voted for him because he was black. Like, oh really? Then why didn't Jesse Jackson ever win? Right? So like
Right.
stuff like that, like people say things because it's how they feel, but it's not really how they move, right? Otherwise, you know, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, we would have had plenty of viable candidates by now. So it was much more than him being black. I think the same for a woman candidate. Like, it's got to be someone that people are really excited for and they really love, you know, and they just like have that like it factor or something. I don't know if it's AOC, you know, maybe in my New York bubble it is. I don't know how people outside of, I don't know how the Midwest would react to her, or older folks, you know. Obviously I think younger folks react to her really well, but I don't know. Do you have a sense? Do you have a sense of that?
I do, actually. When she was running for the primaries, actually, I have, my niece lives in DC, so she posted something about either her cousin or she posted something about AOC, and there were a lot of comments about like, oh, don't push this socialism, blah, 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 you know. I think that one of the reasons that AOC won is because she identifies with her constituency on more than just the issues. You know what I mean? And this person from Washington, D.C. couldn't see that.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? So I was like, you know, actually, she's a Latina woman from the Bronx. Like, she's going to win this primary. Just because no one who's looked like her has won that primary before. That's just because nobody ran.
Bartender, you know, like proud bartender.
A normal person.
Yeah.
A normal fucking person, basically.
Yeah.
And then people tried to smear her by saying that she lived in
Westchester or somewhere upstate or something.
But no, she lived in Westchester, and I don't want to be, I live in Mount Vernon, right? So I live in lower Westchester by like Scarsdale and Bronxville, and you know what I'm saying? Where does she live? It wasn't Cortlandt Manor. But it's where like honestly, it's where all the Italians who used to buy in Yonkers live now. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like I don't want to say it's white flight, but that's where people go for like the good schools in Westchester, where they don't have to pay like thousands and thousands and thousands in taxes.
Right.
You know, just because she was living in Westchester doesn't mean she was living in like, you know,
Chappaqua or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is how they tried to sell it. It was ridiculous. Because anyone from New York knew, you know what I mean? Like anyone from Westchester was like, oh.
Yeah. So you think she's got enough? I mean, I would love to see her as like the youngest person to run and to actually like, you know, do some good numbers in 2024. You know.
I think that she would get good numbers. I think that people right now, well, today, I have no idea what in 4 years it's going to look like, right? Because 4 years ago, did we think that this is what it was going to look like?
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But I think that like, as today, she's too young, I think.
Yeah.
I think that scares the boomers. But like in 4 more years, you're going to have less boomers and more whatever the generation after the millennials are.
Right. I think generation. Yeah. Well, there's Y. No, there's Y also, I think.
I think Y are the millennials. We're X. I think, we're X. I think Y was what the millennials were before they started calling them millennials.
Oh, okay. I thought there was one more. Because millennials are 81 is like the last of the millennials. The millennials. 81 is like the oldest, I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
oldest, and then
The latest year.
Yeah, I forget
Yeah.
how far that goes.
I think it's like 67. It's a long time. There's people who were born in the 60s that are millennial or that were Gen X.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so it goes from like 80 to 2002. I think it's 20 years. Every 20 years is a generation.
Oh, 20 years. Okay. All right. I thought there was a Y. I thought there was a Y, but maybe that was millennial. But yeah, I mean, the Generation Z, they're growing up like on the internet, right? I've heard of like babies with tablets in their hands.
We do it at work. We do it at work.
Yeah, they say by the time they're 2, they're fully like integrated. You know, they know how to use these machines and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, she would be too old to run now, but she'd be just barely old enough to run in 2024.
She would be like 36.
She'd just be turning 35. She'd be just old enough. Yeah, she'd be just old enough to make the threshold. Yeah.
You know, in 4 years, why not? I mean, you never know.
Yeah, I mean, if they can go for Trump, if they can go for Trump, why not her? Now, I think it would be interesting. Like, I think what would help her is if in these next, until then, if she were to be like a state senator or something to give her a little bit more, flesh her out a little bit more like what Obama was, you know?
Yeah.
And even Obama had more years as, what was he? He was, what was he? He was a state senator and a U.S. senator, right?
I don't know if he was U.S. Oh, wait, did he take that one guy's seat that was like the pyramid scheme guy?
I don't know. He was, yeah, I think.
Because he was in Illinois, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if he was a U.S. senator, it was for a short period of time. It was only like 3 years. But before that, I think he was state senator for like 5 years.
He was definitely state secretary. Yeah. But I think he went from, you know, just basically working on campaigns to being a state senator, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah. But yeah, it would be really nice to see. I feel like we could definitely elect a woman, and you know, the problem with Hillary is like Hillary's timing has been unfortunately off. So like back in 2008, she wasn't likable enough, but had Obama lost, everyone would have voted for her, right? Mm-hmm. For the primary. Yeah. There wasn't this contention. And then by the time 2016 rolled around, she must have gotten with some good PR people. She was a lot more likable. She was like relaxed, kind of funny sometimes, going on all these shows. But we had shifted left from there. And, you know, even people were poking holes in Obama's legacy as far as like some of the unleftist things he did. So she
like the war.
Yeah, like wars and drones.
The war.
And yeah, immigration and the war.
Yeah.
And all that stuff. And
the war.
She just had way too much baggage, and people were just, besides being misogynist, people just were not going to, we had shifted already. Like her time was gone, you know?
Yeah, and she's like a 90s Democrat.
Yeah, and she tried that from Bill's playbook, the whole capitulating to the right, which totally worked for Bill in the 90s. And now here she was trying that like decades later, and it just didn't work.
Right.
Which is why I'm hoping an AOC who like says, screw you, I'm a democratic socialist, you know, has like a chance, right?
Yeah.
Because more young people are like voting, and more DSA folks are like pushing the agendas. Someone like this can finally get in there and do some damage.
Yeah. I mean, it'll also be, I think, there'll be more democratic socialists on the lower level. So people won't be so afraid of the term.
Yeah.
You know, people are so afraid of that term. And I think that the more local and like state representatives and senators and even federal that you have that embody that, who really just take that role on, is kind
Right.
of personifying what that means.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a lot less scary for people.
Yeah, I mean, I think what she does well is she can take a concept and just break it down for people so they understand. You know, she can take a concept and be like, look, if you like public schools, you know, if you like Social Security and like, you know, if you like your Medicare, that's what being a democratic socialist means.
Right.
You know?
Right. Like that's what our nation really is, you know?
Yeah.
Not to the level that some of us would like, but to a degree.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
To a degree.
An interesting thing that I've been pushing for years is for a few years now is the idea of like socialized housing, you know, and AOC like started talking about that, which I thought was cool. I was down in DC speaking to, you know, doing some organizing down there, and one of the guys I was organizing with had a meeting with her, and I was like, you know, see if you can get her to see if she has any ideas about this subject, or you know, see what she says about this. I don't know if he ever did, but about a year later, I was reading her thoughts on socialized housing and how, like, you know, if the housing is like good enough for politicians, it should be good enough for everyone, and that it can totally, you know, totally be done. And how they used to have it in the UK before Margaret Thatcher kind of did away with it. The pushback I got from it, from the last person I talked to,